That's what I did great. Huh?
I hope that you've had an incredible week. I'm going to be doing something different in today's video, and I'm going to be talking about my 5 favorites. So, my 5 favorite novels of all time, my 5 favorite philosophy books of all time, and my 5 favorite fragrances of all time. And I don't know what compelled me to make this video, but I feel like it would be helpful, and I feel like it's a very difficult question to answer, and it's something that I've been mulling over a lot. It's kind of like when somebody asks you, like, what's your favorite song or what's your favorite book? And I feel like those questions often make me freeze and stop like dead in my tracks because I panic. And sometimes my favorites rotate and change. So as for today and for today's video, these are my top 5 favorites. Also, this is coming out a day before Mother's Day. So if you are a mother, I'm wishing you the happiest Mother's Day, and I hope that whatever you do today makes you feel loved and appreciated and understood as a woman first and as a mom. And I hope that you do something to treat yourself, whatever that means for you, because it means something different for everybody. So my heart goes out to you and your kids and your family, and genuinely hoping that you can do something for yourself today. With that said, I'm going to start with my 5 favorite novels, and then probably take a little break, and then I'll move into philosophy and then fragrance. Full disclosure, these are not in any particular order. So with that said, we are going to start with Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. This is a gothic novel in the truest sense. It's lush and atmospheric and quietly unhinged. It's about a girl with no name who marries a mysterious widower and moves into his grand estate, only to find herself haunted, both psychologically and spiritually, by the memory of his first wife, Rebecca. And I love this book because it's not just about romantic obsession, it's about identity and power and insecurity and how women are shaped by the rooms that they inhabit. It's very eerie and seductive and strangely feminist beneath the shadows. The next one is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, and I think everyone thinks that they know this book, but no one really does until they read it slowly. And it's not a monster story, it's really about loneliness and creation and the horrors of being unloved. I love Frankenstein because it's devastatingly human. Mary Shelley wrote it when she was basically still a teenager, and yet it feels like a book written after death. Every time I reread it, it reminds me that intelligence without intimacy can become cruelty. And I highly recommend rereading this again as an adult. A Breath of Life by Clarice Lispector. This is one of my favorite books of all time. I love Clarice Lispector. This one is more like an evocation than a novel. It's fragmented and strange and full of contradictions, and it never really explains itself. It's essentially a conversation between a male author and a female character that he has invented, both of them just unraveling. And I love it because it makes no attempt to be coherent. It's about being a woman, being God, being broken, being born. It feels like it was written by someone who was absolutely possessed. And Clarice Lispector always reminds me that writing doesn't need to make sense to be true. I can confidently say that The Brothers Karamazov by Dostoevsky is my favorite novel of all time. It's about 3 brothers, one rational, one passionate, one spiritual, and their father, who's a complete monster. It's a murder mystery, a theological treatise, and a psychological study, and it's also philosophical, like all at once. And I think that's why I love it. It has everything, like guilt, love, doubt, faith, cruelty, tenderness. It doesn't pretend to have the answer, but it makes you sit with all of the questions that the book asks. It makes me feel brave, and it also makes me want to be a better human, a better daughter, a better person in general. And I think that these types of books that change you and leave such an impact are what make novels like this land like favorite books of all time. This book makes me want to be a better person, and it's such an experience of a novel. It's not easy, but it's rewarding and it's worth it, and it reminds me of why I love literature so much. The Book of Disquiet by Fernando Pessoa. This is a book for when you can't feel anything clearly. It's made up of fragments, observations, dreams, anxieties, philosophies. And this is all from the perspective of a man who works as a bookkeeper and doesn't believe in living. And I love this book because it refuses revolution. It's soft and devastating. It's also very lonely in a way that feels hard to name. It doesn't really ask to be understood. It just sits there like a room inside your chest, quietly rearranging everything the way that it intends to. As you can see, I kind of have a type. I love gothic, darker literature. These have pretty much stayed in my top 5 rotation probably over the past couple of years. Rebecca is a new addition. And that's because I discovered this book quite recently and just fell in love with it. And it's one of those books that I never get tired of. And if I'm ever craving like an experience of a novel, like a rich, lush, atmospheric, gothic experience, I always grab Rebecca. So earlier I talked about my favorite novels, and now I want to talk about philosophy books just because I feel like it's such a different type of reading when you're reading philosophy. And these shift quite frequently. It just kind of depends on what my mood is or what I'm kind of like interested in learning about or studying. So this is kind of like, some of these actually will never change, but I feel like there's a couple in here that kind of rotate depending on what kind of mood I'm in. So let me tell you my 5 favorite philosophy novels as of now. So the first one is Simone de Beauvoir's Ethics of Ambiguity, and I feel like this is de Beauvoir's like existentialist ethics, where she really argues that human freedom is both a gift and also a burden, that basically we're responsible not just for ourselves but for others too. And I think she really pushes back against nihilism and apathy by really rooting for finding meaning in ambiguity and the ambiguities of life, and also interdependence. And I really enjoy this book specifically because it gave me a language for how I already felt, that basically that to live authentically is to live in contradiction. And it's about being fractured and whole at the same time, and it makes you feel seen but also held accountable. Next is Fear and Trembling by Soren Kierkegaard, and this book really unpacks the story of Abraham and Isaac, not to analyze it per se, but to really sit inside its terror. And it's about faith, and faith that really defies reason, about doing something so unthinkable that it really alienates you from the rest of the world. And it's still like in that, really still believing that it's right. And I really enjoyed this because it doesn't try to rationalize belief. It really lets faith stay brutal and intimate, and it gave me permission to hold on to what doesn't make sense but still feels necessary. So this is like emotional, spiritual, and existential, all in one. The Myth of Sisyphus by Albert Camus. And I like this because I very much live a Sisyphusian existence. And in this book, Camus really starts with a very bleak question, which is that if life has no meaning, is it still worth living? And he explores absurdity and the human need for clarity and how we might live in defiance or despair without really turning to illusion. And I really enjoyed this because it sits with despair instead of trying to solve it. It's quiet and devastating, and it feels like someone who is like holding your hand while everything around you is just kind of like crumbling and saying, nevertheless, despite it all, we will go on and continue. The next is Being in Time by Heidegger, and this is Heidegger's like massive, tangled inquiry into what it means to be, what it means to exist. And he writes about death and time and authenticity and how most of us live in distraction from ourselves. It's very foundational and also frustrating, and I feel like it's kind of otherworldly in that way. But I enjoy this because it makes you feel alien to your existence in a way that's oddly clarifying. It doesn't really answer anything, but it doesn't, like, it just holds a mirror to your being, and it holds it up in front of you, and it asks you to look directly into the mirror and basically face yourself, face your insecurities, face the things that you may be trying to avoid in this world. And it's very confrontational in that way, but I very much appreciate that because sometimes I need literature that keeps me in check. Lastly, Existentialism is a Humanism by Jean-Paul Sartre, and this is Sartre's defense of existentialism. It's really delivered as a lecture, and I think this is so poignant to me because this was kind of my gateway drug into philosophy, as well as Sophie's World, but this really kind of like took the cake for me. But he basically argues that without God, we are radically free and also radically responsible. And it's very sharp and clear and kind of brutal in its honesty, which I love in literature. I think that it really reminds me that, like, even when I feel completely unmoored, I'm still the one choosing. Like, every single day in life, we have a choice to do something with ourselves, with our decisions, with our lives. Like, the way that we treat ourselves, the way that we treat others, like, we ultimately have that decision. And that freedom is scary, but it's also sacred. And I feel like if you are new to philosophy and you're trying to get into the genre, this is such a great way to immerse yourself in this world. And, like, yes, Sophie's World is great, and I think that that's another great, like, intro book. But, like, I think that if you're really serious about, you know, reading a book that can make a pretty profound impact in your life, I think that this is just, like, required reading. Now, you're probably wondering, but what about Aristotle and Plato? And, like, just know that these books, these are not, in my opinion, like, necessarily the best philosophy books of all time. There are plenty of philosophy books that have absolutely changed my life, but like I said, there's a few that kind of rotate. Like, this is one that kind of rotates, but it's been heavily on my mind, so right now it's in my top 5. I would say that these two always remain, dare I say. But yeah, I think that, like, this type of reading is not for, like, leisure, luxury, daily, if you understand what I'm saying. Because sometimes, like, I'm not in the mood to read this. I'm feeling anxious. I'm feeling like the weight of the world is, like, very unbearable, which is kind of the state that I've been in the past few weeks. So I'm not really reading philosophy right now. But it is, in my opinion, essential and helpful for you to understand what it means to be a good human, how to be a better human to yourself and to others and the world around you. fragrances right now, and these are the top 5 fragrances that I own. And I don't think that they're necessarily all the best fragrances. A few of them I do. I think one of them I would argue is like the perfect perfume. But I think that they all mean something to me. They're very sentimental to me, so that's why they're my favorite. So let me tell you about each one. Valaya by Parfum de Marly, in my opinion, is the closest thing to perfection in a perfume for me. This smells like just restraint and softness that are sometimes at war with each other. There's these like bright aldehydic notes and this peach that gives it a very clean, radiant edge, like cold morning light on skin that's still warm from your sleep. And I think that there is something carnal under the surface as well. There's musk, ambroxan, vanilla, and it's not trying to seduce you, but it just does. Like, it has that very seductive, intimate, sensual quality to it. It just smells like control and elegance and longing that's held like just beneath the surface. It kind of reminds me of like if someone, like that person who never raises their voice but they always get their way. That's this one right here. I get so many compliments on this fragrance, and that is not why I wear this, but like this perfume makes me feel like I can breathe, if that makes sense to anybody out there. When I wear this, I feel like I can breathe my deepest breath. Okay, Molecule 01, in my opinion, is the perfect fragrance. This is like my number 2 perfect fragrance. If I could only name 2, it'd be these 2, and I layer them together frequently. This only has 1 note, which is ISO-E Super, and this isn't a scent that you wear. It's just a mood that becomes you, and it's so unique to you. The ISO-E Super is very subtle and almost like imperceptible, but people will smell it on you even if you don't smell it on yourself. And just the amount of people are like, you smell so good, what is that? Oh my goodness, what is that? And it's, people tell me that it's very woody, sensual, soft. Like, I don't know, it smells different on everyone, which I think is why I like it so much. But it just smells like the trace of someone like that leaves right behind you. It smells like, I don't know, like a sweater from your best friend or your lover or whatever. But it's perfect. It's barely there. It merges to your skin, your chemistry, and really what embodies what you're supposed to smell like. It's barely there, but it's unforgettable. It smells like intimacy without effort, and like being seen in a way that feels good and comfortable and safe. And I adore this. This is my 2nd bottle. I just bought this bottle a few months ago. I don't leave the house without wearing this. Portrait of a Lady by Frederic Malle is a scent that just knows power. It's deep, it's gothic, it's like gothic rose soaked in patchouli and clove and incense and something that's like slightly overripe, like velvet. It just, I don't know. It smells like the most sensual, like seductive woman that you see on the street. It's rich and it's commanding, but it never tries too hard. And this is like the first perfume that really made me feel like a woman in a weird way. But yeah, I've like in the city, there have been people who have like, I know people like, oh, they chased me down the block. Like this happened with this fragrance several times. I don't wear it that much anymore, but it's just a very, very special fragrance, and this will always be in my top 5 favorites. Tahota by Indult is the purest form of vanilla in a fragrance. I think this is so beautifully done. It's pure skin warmed vanilla, not cupcake vanilla. It's thick and musky and almost carnal, similar to Valaya, but it doesn't, I don't know, it's not a fragrance that like is beast mode and blooms outward. It really just pulls you in, and it's the scent of like safety laced with desire, and it just feels safe and comforting, like closeness. It's like the kind of comfort that you crave. And if you ever like bake cookies, or if you baked cookies as a young girl with your mom in the kitchen, like it just, when you would pour vanilla bean extract into the dough, this is just exactly what it smells like. It's very photorealistic vanilla, and I am kind of extreme when it comes to fragrance. I either want one note simplicity, or like the most extreme, like long paragraphs of notes that just make it super complex. And yeah, it's my extremist personality. Okay, my last one is Thé Noir by Le Labo, and I've made like quite a dent in this one as well. There's dry tea leaves, fig, hay, tobacco, and it smells like if you're reading a book that just changes your life. I don't know, or like a day that's spent completely alone in a city where nobody knows you. I love this fragrance because, I don't know, it's very warm and comforting and beautiful. Like the way that this projects is just stunning. I also just have really good memories of this fragrance, and there's a lot of sentimental value that I hold to this scent. It's very much like a fall, winter, autumnal fragrance, but it just kind of like, I think a lot of the reason why I love this so much is because of the memory, but it is a beautiful scent. I think despite the amount of hate that Le Labo gets, they are brilliant at what they do. People hate, I still love their fragrances. I own many of them, and I will never stop buying them because quality is quality is quality. And I love the way that this makes me feel. And that's the whole point of perfume. You should love the way that it makes you feel. If any of these perfumes kind of rotate through favorites, this is the only one that kind of like goes through a little shift as the seasons progress. I have so many Le Labo scents that I love. Another 13, Vanille 44, Gaillac 10, Thé Noir 29. But I would say my fifth perfume is the only one that kind of like stays on rotation. But like I said, I really, I don't necessarily think that these five are like the greatest perfumes to ever exist. They're just the greatest to me, and that's what matters. And your top five should be the greatest to you, and that's all that matters. So I'm curious to know if you have like a top five that you've curated, and if any of the ones that I mentioned today happen to be on your top five too. I am starting a new semester term coursework load this week, and I am excited about it. I learned a lot last semester about taking care of myself and what I did wrong, what I could do better, because if I continue the way that I was going last term, I'm not going to survive, quite literally. So I'm excited about this upcoming term, and if like study with me videos or study tips or stationery, like my favorite stationery stuff, notebooks, like if any school content is of interest to you, let me know. I might make a study with me YouTube video, or like a read with me, just something like calm and cozy for you to like have someone there with you, whatever it is that you are doing. But yeah, I feel very focused. I feel very grounded. I feel very positive about this upcoming term. So yeah, I think I just really learned how important it is to take care of myself, and I'm not 19 years old anymore, and like I can't be acting the way that I was when I was 19, or like expect that I can, and be okay with that and forgive myself and just kind of adapt with what I know my body needs, which is difficult for me because I am somebody who thrives and feels grounded in routine, and it's very difficult for me to like switch things up even if it's for my own good. But anyways, with that said, let me know your thoughts on school content or study content or anything else that is of interest to you for this channel.